You guys know Tania is actually my personal accountant. Take it away, Tania.
Just one sec. So good afternoon, everybody. I'm very privileged to be here talking to all the travel nurses who take care of all of us. And Jolene asked me to, Jolene and Minette both asked me to help you understand some of the big questions that you guys have in terms of structure and how you all should position yourself for taxes and accounting. So this is what the presentation is going to be. I have kept the presentation very short just because we cannot get into too much details. So I'm just going to go over the overview of what structure and things should look like for you. And I want to give more time for questions and answers, because I think that way a lot of the issues or questions or things that are bothering you would get resolved when people ask and voice their questions. Other people's questions and issues get sorted out as well. So without any further ado, I'm just going to go through this few slides that I have. So if you can just note down your questions so that way they have a clean recording for anybody that wants to watch this in the future. And we can keep all our questions for the end. Is that okay? Thumbs up. And you can also put questions in the chat if because I'll go through the chat later and address anything that got missed, if that's okay with everybody. So here we go. So to begin, there are basically three structures that we have in the Canadian tax system or accounting system or business system, as you may want to call it, that we usually follow or that we usually come across. There are others, but they're not very common. And so some of you might already be in this structure. I'm not sure, but we'll check with that later. So the first one is sole proprietor. That is the most common, the one that everybody starts their business with. You usually have a master business license, especially if you want to have a name that you're operating your business under, like if you want to have a website, business cards, those kinds of things. You usually have a business name, or you can operate under your own name. So I could operate as Tania D. I'm a traveling nurse. I can operate under my own name. There is no specific rule or regulation that you need to have a business name. So you register your name with Service Ontario, you get a master business license for tax filing. Basically, since you're a sole proprietor, everything is filed under your own personal taxes. So when you see your tax return, there will be a form included in that, which is called a T2125. Feel free to note down these items because of like the terms that I'm using, because these will come back and forth. People will keep asking you, like mortgage people and anybody, finance people, banks, they'll say, okay, do you have a T2125? And people don't have any clue what it is. Do you have your T1 general? And people don't have a clue what it is. So the important things, people who are even in business for a long time, they're like, hey, I don't know what my T1G is. T1G is basically your income tax return, your personal income tax return. It's called T1 general for short. They call it a T1G. So sometimes you might hear your mortgage broker, your bank say, can you please send us a copy of your T1G? That's what it means. Inside that T1G or T1 general or your personal tax, there is a form called Statement of Business Activity, which is a T2125. On this form, a sole proprietor would report all their income and expense. So as a traveling nurse, your income and your expense for the year would be reported on this form. Okay, this is an important form for your accountant or anybody to have a look at what is your financial position for that particular year. The next important step is you must maintain a good, clean bookkeeping system. You can use whatever software you have, handwritten, Excel. It doesn't matter. If you're a sole proprietor, the main important bottom line is that you need to maintain that so that you don't lose out on important deductions. Because in your case, it's very important to maximize your deductions so that you pay less tax, right? That is, of course, the accountant's job, but then to help the accountant to do that better, if you are able to accumulate and actually track everything, then it gives us a better idea of what we can use and what we cannot use. And it also helps us to be more creative. So together we can work and say, okay, you know what, how can we make this a business expense? How do we convert this into a business expense? It gets the creative juices flowing, if you understand what I mean. Then, so you should record everything so that way we can, as I said, we can become creative. I'm not sure about HST, but from where I saw, I spoke to a few nurses and they all said that there was no HST. So I'm thinking that this service is exempt just because it's in the health service industry.
Yes.
So I'm assuming right now that it's exempt.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. Right? Yes, this is Mina speaking. Sorry to interrupt. It is exempt with us. Nurses don't pay HST because they are field and yeah.
Right. Okay. So that's what I assumed. And you should be responsible to budget and plan for your taxes, okay? Because I have a lot of clients who are sole proprietors who just come off a T4 and then they suddenly go into sole proprietorship and then they have no clue what they're doing. And then the money comes in, the money goes out, we're busy working and this and that. And then when the tax time comes and they have a big tax bill at the end, then they don't know how to deal with that. So what we do is we figure out in the beginning how much percentage of your income you need to put away, maybe in a separate account, in a GIC or something, or better yet, just pay it to the government as an installment. So that part of budgeting and planning for your tax payments is very key, because this will basically take the stress off you and you won't have to worry about that when tax time comes. That's something, again, you have to work with your accountant. Now, the next structure is a partnership. So say, for example, me and Jolene are traveling nurses and we decide, okay, you know what, I want to do a partnership with you and we want to see if there's some other stuff that we can do on the side or there's any other consulting stuff that we can do. And then that way we open our business as a partnership. So the process is exactly the same as a sole proprietorship, but instead of one name, there'll be two names on the master business license. And on the tax return, it will still be on your personal tax return. It will just be that you'll split the income statement and the expense statement in two. So whatever partnership shares, say if it's 50-50, 60-40, you'll split the tax return on two tax returns. I don't need to explain this too much. I don't think too many people use this structure. So I will skip to the next one, which is also an important one. I think many of you here are heading towards that or are already into this structure. So this is where the issues start and the questions come up as to, okay, now what is the meaning of incorporation, right? A lot of us do not understand the difference and we think that, oh, okay, I own the business, it's my company, it's my bank account, it doesn't matter where the cash goes, doesn't matter, right? Because I'm the only owner of this company. Fair enough. But as per the corporation rules and as per the CRA rules, that is not the same thing. It matters, okay? So we have to understand how this is separate from us. So basically, when you incorporate, it's the same as giving birth to another entity or to another child or to another offspring. It's separate from you. So although it's part of you, it's a separate individual, it's a separate entity, it has its own tax SIN number, it has its own stuff, it has to file its own tax return, it has to have its own bank account, everything. So it's not the same as you. You are an individual and your corporation is another entity on its own. That's very important to understand. So the moment you incorporate, I incorporated on 1st of January, suppose, the corporation will get its own bank account and everything from that day on would go into that bank account. So it'll be separate from you as an individual. That is very, very key to understand. A lot of people in my experience, they don't know the difference. So they deposit money into their personal account, they deposit some into the corporation account, they spend money from any account without realizing the consequences. And that creates a lot of issues later on for accounting, taxes, audits, all these kinds of stuff. So that is something that everybody needs to keep in mind. So the first, when you incorporate, you get something called an articles of incorporation. I'm sure many of you must be aware of this. It's basically your kind of a license or a document that says you are now incorporated. This is your corporation number. This is your date of incorporation. These are the directors. This document, ladies, is very important. Please keep this always on your email or in a file that is very handy, because it will be needed by anybody who you're going to deal with. So like the bank, mortgage, open a bank account, get a loan, accounting, tax, anything. Anybody is going to ask you, where is your articles of incorporation? That's like your basic identity or your SIN card for your corporation. So the filing of the taxes, as I explained earlier in the first slide, that the filing of the taxes is separate from you. So just like your personal tax is called a T1, the corporation tax is called a T2. So if somebody says T1, T2, now you will understand what the difference is. So T1 is your personal tax return. And when somebody refers to as a T2, it's basically your corporation tax return. It's a completely different document. There's a lot of stuff in it that we've got to fill out. And your income and expense statement would go into that corporate return. So basically, we take the information from your bookkeeping, we compile it in a format that will be ready to go into the corporate tax return, and then it goes into that tax return, and that's how we report your income or your expense. Again, you have to maintain your bookkeeping system, same as before. However, preferably for an incorporation, it's better to use an accounting software. So QuickBooks or Sage or Wave or however you want to do it. I work with my clients based on however they want to do it. So if you want to maintain your books, fine, no problem. I'll support you. If you want us to do it, that's also possible. So I usually work with anybody with any kind of accounting system. It's not an issue for me. So again, write off all the expenses relating to performing your work. Again, there is a fine line because now we are separating expenses between, okay, what is personal and what is corporate. So what we do at this point is I advise clients that now if you're using your car, if you're using your phone, if you're using your internet, if you're working from home, if you're doing certain things, then there are certain items that we move to be paid from the corporate bank account because they become business expenses. Whereas things like mortgage, utilities, all those things which are still personal remain in your personal because you still live in that house. So there is a fine line. I don't want to go into details here because again, that's a person-to-person thing, but just an overview that there is, when you incorporate, we have to draw that line. What is going to be under the corporation, what is going to be under personal, that is very important. Okay, we cannot muddy that or gray that out because that becomes a very sore topic when CRA comes in to look at your books or check what you've been doing. So register for HST, that's not applicable in this case. And again, we have to be responsible and budget for our taxes because as a corporation, now you have two taxes that you have to take care of. Overall, it will be the same if your accountant does a good job. It's just that it has to be paid under two accounts because now you're going to be paying corporate tax under the T2 and you're going to be paying personal tax under the T1. It's possible that one or the other may not have any tax depending on how we structure your income, but you're responsible for two taxes, two income taxes. Now, this is one of the big questions that people have. How do I pay myself from my corporation? Because technically, as I explained earlier, many people think that corporation is owned by me. It's my bank account. I can take the money from anywhere whenever I like. But no, that's not the case in the case of a corporation, because the corporation is a separate person. It would, if you take money from the bank account, it would almost amount like me going into your bank account and taking the money whenever I feel like. It's equivalent to that in the eyes of the law. Okay. And that's a no-no. So if you did that, no problem, but you have to pay taxes on all the money that you took out from the corporation. That's considered to be your income. So in order to structure that and to be very, very strict or disciplined with that, what we say is either you become an employee of your company, or you share the profit. Okay, so there are two things. You are the owner of your company, so you have the right to share the profit, or you become an employee of the company, you take a salary, and you can still share the profit. So this is something that I work with individually based on the income that's coming in, based on how much you want, how much you need, all those kinds of things. So we do it in such a way, we come up with a magic number for each person, which works best for your tax bracket. So when I take the corporate taxes and the personal taxes, I try to bring both down to the lowest. So that dividend and salary number is worked out based on how to benefit you and how to benefit your taxes. So incorporation is not for everybody. That's the other thing. So yes, incorporation has a lower tax rate, but it may not be necessary that it works for everyone. Okay, and I'll explain that in the next slide. So there are a lot of factors to be considered. And the other thing is that taxes must be filed on time, because corporate tax penalties are very big. So if you're late or something happens and you don't file in time, I think the penalties are close to like probably 30% of whatever you owe. So now the question becomes, how do you choose your structure? So for those who are already incorporated or already in a structure, that's fine. But those who are on the fence and are deciding, okay, what do I do now? Or those who are just coming into this kind of occupation or profession, they may be thinking, what do I do? So the key factors that you should consider for this is what is your annual income? So what do you bring in as a travel nurse directly from the clients? So there's two steps. If you're a corporation, there's two steps. If there's no corporation, then there's just one step. Then it's very straightforward. But if it's a corporation, then there are two steps. And that's what we're talking about right now, a corporation. So first, you bring in the money into your corporation. That's step number one. And the second step is when you flow it out to yourself. So we may have to do another Zoom after this if I time out, because we got 10 minutes. Okay, I'm going to go quick. So family income is the other key important thing. How much do we need to live? Family specifics. So some people may have dependents, some people may have disabled dependents. So that plays a big important factor in whether you should incorporate or not. What are the write-offs available to your business? How much do you rely on the income from that source? When is a good time to switch to incorporation? So it may not be necessary that you incorporate from the get-go. You may be 1 or 2 years into this profession, and then your income might go up. So then your accountant might advise you to go ahead and incorporate, because now it makes more sense. And what do I do with the money left inside the corporation? So that's a big question that many of my clients have. So I make maybe, suppose somebody makes $150,000 in a year. I take out 75 of that as income to myself. Now there's $75,000 sitting in the account, in my corporate account, and it's sitting there and it's idle and I can't use it because I'll have to pay tax. So how best to use that money that is left inside the corporation? So these are all things that I, as an accountant, work with my clients to be able to minimize the taxes and at the same time maximize the benefit to the client. Okay, to maximize the use of the money, and but keeping the taxes low as possible. So how can we help? So as an accountant, how I can help you? So basically, it's a one-on-one meeting. We can do a Zoom or whatever it is that you choose to understand your unique situation. Again, it's not a cookie cutter thing that I can do for everybody, because each person's situation is very unique and very different. So then based on that information that we discuss, I'll advise you what's the best structure. And again, structure can be tweaked, so we can change at any time. But once you incorporate, then that's done. If you're already in a structure, then we just help you work with that structure, or we help you with the transition. And of course, we help with the bookkeeping and tax planning. We'll advise you along the way. So with my clients, I'm always accessible, email, phone, text, and I usually try to reply within 24 hours. We work with other professionals that are in your life who are guiding you, like your financial advisors, like RRSP time, how much you should put in your TFSA, whether this works, that works. So we work closely with your financial advisor, other people, mortgage brokers, all those kinds of people that affect your financial life. Our bottom line and aim, as I said, is to put more money back in your pocket that you work so hard for, and to maximize your tax strategy so you pay the least tax. My clients like me because I'm there all the time for them. And the main thing is to be available, serve your needs. There is no obligation. I don't sell any packages or anything. Like if you want this service, you have to buy that service. If you want that service, you can do a consult with me. You can go, if you're out of province and you feel more comfortable with another accountant, that's fine. So I will serve you based on your needs and whatever you need. That's my part here. I'm going to open it up for questions and answers, but the only thing is that the meeting might time out. So Jolene, what do you suggest? Minette, should I do another Zoom?
What I was saying, Tania, is this is a really powerful tool for people to be able to, it's a recording. So go ahead and stop the recording now, Tania.
Yeah, I'm going to stop this and stop